Welcome, friends, to Hold the Line. Well, it didn't take long, did it? Just days after the corporate media called the election for Joe Biden, Democrats are already showing signs of fracture. As we speak, there's a battle playing out between House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and AOC and the squad, the far left. It's remarkable to watch. It's kind of fun, isn't it? On the one side, you have a ruthless, power-mad, limousine liberal who should have retired a long time ago, Nancy Pelosi. On the other side, you have arguably the dumbest member of Congress. They also happen to be, unfortunately, when we're talking about the left, among the most powerful, which is absolutely stunning. But AOC and those like her in Congress didn't become powerful because of their great ideas, because of their unparalleled brain power. For many Democrats, especially the new breed you see here on the far left, the socialists, power comes from their ability to demagogue. Forget about history, forget about human experience, human nature, what we've learned as a country, the American founding, forget about all that. Just listen to Bernie and Warren and AOC. A lot of the power they have also comes from using identity politics to create racial division and exploit it, as we know. And of course, with all of this, the public embrace of socialism. Of course, what they should know from history, what they should know from actually understanding the past of this country, they forget. They don't care about it at all. They don't care that collectivism and central planning, the twin pillars of socialism, are a recipe for failure. Socialism will not make Americans happier, healthier, safer, better off. No, it just empowers those who are seeking authority and makes sure the rest of us have less freedom and less control over our own lives. Now, Pelosi can't go forward with a socialist agenda, at least not right away. She's not really a socialist, she's a Pelosiist. And just like Joe Biden, she's supposed to be part of the old guard of the Democrat Party, emphasis on old, and publicly we're told by the media that they're the adults in the room. They tell the American people, don't worry, we're not as crazy as those socialists over there. I would say young socialists, but Bernie Sanders is probably the leader of them right now. We've got control over the people in our party, they tell us. The AOC wing, the squad, Bernie Sanders, Warren, sure. Let's understand, this is not an age thing. It's not the old versus the young. This is an ideology thing. Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren are two of the most powerful members of Congress on the Democrat side, and they're very much ideologically aligned with this radical socialist agenda. And what you have right now is a socialist insurgency from within the Democrat Party ranks that's bubbling up. It's just getting going. And now that they've gotten to a stage where they believe, the Democrats, that they've won the election, although no states have actually certified the results yet, the question for Pelosi, for Biden, for those old guard, not quite insane Democrats, how do you make your radical left-wing base happy while convincing the American people that from the very beginning they weren't swindled, right? That good old blue-collar Joe isn't really a red who's going to do the bidding of the far left. Democrats like Pelosi are just trying to figure out how they sell a vision of the future to the American people that isn't scary and that doesn't upset the left-wing base and the activists that she needs to support the Democrat Party, if not her, in her quest for power. In the long term, Pelosi wants many of the same things that AOC and the socialist left want. You have to remember that. It's not like she has some big objection on ideological grounds to the kinds of policies that are being pushed by these socialist radicals. It's Nancy Pelosi knowing that socialism still doesn't sit well with the vast majority of the American people. That's the issue. You'll notice Republicans don't have this problem, do they? Republicans don't have a squad. I mean, sure, there are divisions and there are disagreements within the GOP. There are more conservative and more moderate Republicans, caucuses with different priorities. But there's not some huge wing of the GOP that tries to push ideas that are radically at odds with or contradict what Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy are saying. They're all essentially trying to row the boat in the same direction, and they're honest about it. So the ideological insurgency that we see right now in Congress and that represents what's going on within the left across the country, it's unique to Democrats. And that's because part of what they're doing here is incrementally moving the U.S. towards socialism. Incrementalism is the key. That's their policy approach. If you look over the last 20 years, you have more and more government spending, government control, government involvement in healthcare, and just leftism across the board. More radical left-wing policies, too. It's becoming more and more difficult to hide it. They understand that people are becoming aware of what the long-term plan is, the government taking more of your money, controlling more of your life. That's what the Democrats really offer you. Central planning and collectivism, with a whole bunch of identity politics thrown in there, and wokeness. These are the central ideas of what the Democrats are trying to accomplish. It's really just a question of speed. You see, the radicals within the Democrat Party, they want the express train. The old guard says, no, that'll scare people. Let's take the local, stop by stop. We'll go to the same place. A perfect example of this is Joe Biden's ever-changing position on energy, something that's really important to everybody in the country, or should be. Biden said repeatedly during the Democrat primary that he was going to ban fracking. It was just like catnip for the rabid left, who believe that fracking, which has been an enormous blessing for all of us, is destroying the planet, poisoning your water. They want it banned, and they want it banned now. But during the general election, Biden knew that his opposition to fracking was going to cost him votes in key states, so he had to back away from that radical position. What was the compromise from the old guard Democrats? They say, well, we're going to ban fracking in a few decades, right? That's what they had to say to try to win at the national level. That's what they had to say to fool enough voters in Ohio, well, fortunately not that many in Ohio, and Pennsylvania, we'll still see. Democrats have to lie ultimately about what they're really all about. That's how they win states that are contested, by pretending to be something that at their core the party really isn't. And so that's why this socialist insurgency from within their ranks could be problematic. It's, like I said, early stage, it's nascent. But those socialist voices are growing louder, and so the lies are going to become more brazen. Right? Don't expect the media to all of a sudden become honest. Do you think journalists are going to really do the jobs that they pretend to do? Democrats are playing with fire, and they know it. We just had an election where they promised us a return to normalcy. They sold Joe Biden as a moderate, a centrist, a unifier even. So they really can't let you know, at least not right now, the Democratic Party is really a socialist party before, or should I say if, Joe Biden takes office. That's what Nancy Pelosi's trying to hold back right now. And of course, Pelosi, the Chardonnay socialist, has her own agenda here too, right? I mean, she's not really into socialism. She's not really into even what the radical left is proposing. She's just the vessel. As long as she's in power, that's all that matters. She wants 2 more years as Speaker of the House. Speaker's gavel, she needs it. She doesn't know how to exist without it. Pelosi and Biden, who have spent most of their lives in government, are obsessed with power. They don't know how to operate without being in power. They need it. There might have been a time when they viewed some of this as public service, but let's be honest, folks, it's self-service. It's helping themselves, pretending to be helping other people, especially the working folks. Anytime a politician uses the term folks, you got to be a little careful. Like when Pelosi says it's all for the children, then you really got to be careful. She's trying to swindle you out of something. And that's true of many politicians on both sides of the aisle, but the desire to maintain power is particularly egregious among old guard Democrats. And then there's the radical socialists, the AOCs, the Ilhan Omars. They're still seeking to accumulate and utilize even more power. They understand the game at some level. They know they need this apparatus of the elites. And so for now, they're going to work within the established structure. They don't want to completely overturn it. Much better to leverage it, to utilize it, at least in the short term. They'd rather co-opt it. And this is the struggle that you see going on right now in the Democrat Party. A socialist insurgency that they can't really control because ultimately that's where the Democrat Party is going. That's where the progressives plan to progress to. We can all see it. Get ready for it. All right, up next, the 2020 elections are far from over in the state of Georgia. A runoff there might decide the balance of power in the Senate. More on that when we come back. These days, being prepared for the unknown is more important than ever. I'm sure you've noticed the world we live in is anything but predictable. We could all benefit from something reliable right about now. Well, what could be more reliable than real gold and silver? I'm talking about real gold and silver you can actually hold right in your hands. Call the Oxford Gold Group right now. Learn how easy it is to get real gold and silver sent securely directly to your home, or how you can have real gold and silver placed in your IRA or 401k. I've done this. I've got real gold and silver at home. So easy. Just a phone call Talk to the Oxford Gold Group today, and they'll tell you what they can offer and how you can start preparing for that uncertain future. Call them at 833-600-GOLD and ask for your free guide on owning gold and silver. Again, call the Oxford Gold Group right now at 833-600-GOLD. The Oxford Gold Group is the only gold company I trust. Call them right now at 833-600-GOLD. One more time, that's 833-600-GOLD. With emotions running high over the tight presidential race, Republicans and Democrats in the state of Georgia need to rally their bases for at least 8 more weeks, as the state has become ground zero in the battle for control of the United States Senate.
Now we take Georgia, and then we change America.
Oh, gosh, Schumer. All eyes have turned to the Peach State as 2 of its Senate races are headed for runoffs in early January. The first, Republican Kelly Loeffler versus Democrat Raphael Warnock. Warnock brought in 32.9% of the vote on Election Day compared to 25.9% for Loeffler. Then you have David Perdue versus John Ossoff, a much closer race on November 3rd. Perdue brought in 49.7% of the vote compared to 47.9% for Ossoff, who told CNN yesterday that, quote, Georgia Democrats have the wind at their backs, unquote. But do they? Here to discuss, our man on the ground in Georgia, in fact, Ryan Girdusky, author of They're Not Listening, but we are listening to Ryan. Hey, buddy.
Hey, how are you?
I'm all right. So you're down in Georgia. We want to get your on-the-ground view of this. But first, tell me this. Should we be worried? I mean, how does what we've seen November 3rd, what does it indicate for how this runoff should go based on the numbers? Then we can get into the ground game and everything else.
Well, there's been several runoffs in the last 10 years in Georgia, most memorably in 2008 when President Obama nearly won the state against John McCain. There was a runoff for U.S. Senate. Republicans did 8 points better in the runoff than in the general. And then in 2018, there was another runoff for a statewide election. The Republican ended up winning by about 3 more points than he had done in the original election. So in history, Republicans normally do better in runoffs than they do in the general election. There's almost always drops between 30 and 50% in a runoff. So we're not expecting a huge turnout the way we did with the presidential election.
So what has to happen now to make sure that these 2 seats don't go to Democrats? Because if they do, we got a Democrat majority leader Chuck Schumer. Tell me it's not so, Ryan. It makes me sad just thinking about
it. Well, most especially is that the Republicans need to reconnect, especially with college-educated whites who came out in smaller numbers throughout the entire presidential election for Republicans. Now, that's not impossible, although it seems like it's hard to do. Though the suburbs of Atlanta will be very, very crucial, and also having a very high turnout in Northeast Georgia, which is the highest percentage of non-college. They're very critical to Republicans in this entire election. So those 2 things are by far essential to turning that vote out, to counter whatever comes out of Atlanta.
Now, there's some back and forth between, I think it was Senator Loeffler and the Secretary of the State of Georgia, Secretary of State of Georgia, where she was asking for him to resign. He responded with an en fuego response. He said, basically, you focus on the Senate, I'll focus on running another great election like I just ran the last one. Who's right on this one? I mean, what were there the kinds of irregularities and mishaps on November 3rd in Georgia that mean that the Secretary of the State of Georgia should probably resign? I mean, was it his mess up or what's what over there?
Part of it is just the law in Georgia, where there is not the requirement of counties to have the exact number of votes on election night. So you had this rolling number of people coming out of Fulton County and DeKalb County saying we have more votes. They found 35,000 votes over a series of a few hours, and they said that they just forgot to click the upload button on the computer that would have brought those votes into the count. But they had they sit there and say they don't exactly know how many people voted in this election, and that is a huge problem. And the Secretary of State has not come down on these counties yet to sit there and demand that they have a tabulated amount on election night, the way they do in Florida.
So, Ryan, what are you doing down there in Georgia? What's the plan? Walk us through it.
Well, so if you want to get involved in Georgia, there's several ways that you can do it. If you can't come, you can come to the state. First of all, everyone should sign up on the Georgia Republican website. I think it's garepublicans.com, but I will tweet it out right after this interview. You go on the Georgia Republican state website and sign up to volunteer. If you want to come into the state, they will work on finding out arrangements to get people to come into the state to knock on doors. If you want to make phone calls from out of state, you could do that as well, or you could most essentially donate if you can have the financial means to donate to both Senate Republican elections, you could do that as well. It's very essential to sit there and get on the ground and get as many people on the ground as possible to do the door knocking. Stacey Abrams has already raised over $7 million for the Georgia Democrats. She has taken, I think 30% for herself and for her nonprofit. But the other 66% went to the other Democrat Senate races. So the Stacey Abrams and the Democrats and the unions down here are mobilizing right now to make sure they get out the highest turnout possible out of Atlanta. So it's essential that Republicans get all hands on deck and get down to Georgia.
Now, I know, Ryan, we've talked to you about it, and you've been called upon to wax philosophical about the future of the actual presidential election. I'm just wondering, without asking you to run through all the details, where are we right now in the big picture? Do you feel like some of these legal challenges are going to have teeth, or are we just biding our time until we have to swear in a President Biden?
Well, I mean, there's certainly some irregularities, especially like in Savannah down in Georgia, where the person doing the counting told all the ballot watchers to go home that they had finished, and then they continued counting ballots. Certainly, and the state of Georgia is suing the city of Savannah over that. And as many as 50 ballots may get thrown out over there. There's several hundred dead people I've heard, and several states that have voted. There are certainly some irregularities that could change a couple of hundred votes here, 100 votes there that I could clearly see. Changing several thousand votes, that's very, very difficult. So I don't really know, especially when it comes to these machines, if they use these machines and they had switched thousands of votes. I don't know if that's an actual thing. I mean, it happened in one county. Did it happen statewide? We still have to wait and see.
Ryan Girdusky, everybody, author of They're Not Listening. Ryan, thanks, buddy. Stay safe in Georgia.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, there you have it. Some ground truth for you, my friends. But, the results of the election are still weeks away from certification. There's a growing call for President Trump to take bold action if these are the closing days of his presidency. We'll take a look at what he could do in the coming days. Coming up. Fellow patriots, MAGA CBD is a revolutionary American-made product that is safe for work, THC-free, and features patented NASA technology, making it the highest quality CBD oil on the market. Dedicated to providing the purest, most effective products on the market, MAGA CBD provides third-party test results from industry-leading experts. MAGA CBD is 100% committed to customer satisfaction and product quality. Best of all, 10% of proceeds benefit veterans and first responders. Look, personally, MAGA CBD has helped me sleep through the night, something I used to always struggle with. You can really feel and taste the difference with their apple pie flavored oil. What CBD product in the market could be more American? MAGA, NASA, apple pie? It's America at its finest. For your CBD needs, look no further than MAGA CBD. Learn more and order today at www.magacbd.org. Save 10% with promo code BUCK. That's MAGA CBD, Charlie Bravo Delta, CBD.org, promo code BUCK. With a few weeks left before the election results are officially certified, many have begun to call on President Trump to make a series of bold and drastic actions in his final days as president. These include sweeping pardons of many allies and whistleblowers, mass declassification of documents related to a whole slew of matters from Russiagate and all the way up to and including the MLK assassination. The argument goes that the election is going to be stolen, well, then the president might as well go out guns blazing, so to speak, wreaking as much havoc on the deep state as he can along the way. On the other hand, Joe Biden's already begun to tease his ever more radical left-wing supporters with a slew of drastic day one agenda items. No joke, period, day one, Joe Biden. These include essentially reversing all of President Trump's orders on illegal immigration, instituting a nationwide mask mandate, which will drive me personally insane, rejoining the, as we know, corrupt World Health Organization and returning federal funding for critical race theory. So they're going to do that again. This is sure to leave his core constituents in Antifa salivating, but what about moderates across the country that helped push him over the finish line? We need a buck brief. I think we need some silenced pistols or some explosives or something for the buck brief. I'm just saying, that looks a little bit like I'm opening my mail. So we're going to work on that one for you. We got some spicier animations in the mix. Okay, first up on pardons. Now, I got a whole bunch of people that I would like to see pardoned. At the top of the list would be the General Flynn, who is still perhaps going to get eventual exoneration from the court system, but who knows? We don't have a whole lot of time here. I think there should be a full pardon there. But here's who's being talked about by Trump, by some Trump supporters at least. You get pardons for Ross Ulbricht, Julian Assange, Edward Snowden. Pardon all the victims of the deep state. This was, this is right. That's Jordan Schachtel there. So Ross Ulbricht, some of you may be saying, who is that guy? Maybe you know him better as the Dread Pirate Roberts. This is the guy who set up the Silk Road online highway, if you will, for the trafficking of goods. Well, that was used, according to the federal indictment, for the trafficking of large amounts of illegal stuff like drugs, and they gave him 2 life sentences. So we should have Jordan on and ask him, Ross Ulbricht should get pardoned. Why? I'm curious about that one. Julian Assange, we all know Julian Assange is somebody that even some more libertarian-leaning folks think maybe should get pardoned, and just all the victims of the deep state. I'll say this, absolutely. Roger Stone should at least get, I think Roger Stone deserves a pardon just because I like the guy, even though I know technically he lied under, but it was a sham investigation. So I'd throw Roger Stone a pardon. But pardon palooza is the basic idea here, folks. You throw it to anybody that the Democrats ruined. I think you get a commutation probably for Manafort. He should make full financial restitution. And the guy did, not pay his taxes, did some illegal stuff. But they treated him very horribly. As the president would say, they treated him very unfairly. And there are others too. So anybody that was ground up in the gears of the deep state, you think a pardon for them would be worthwhile. And as I've said, top of the list would be General Flynn. My friend here, Jordan Schachtel, has some slightly more radical ideas of who to pardon, but you get the idea. There are people out there talking about that. One that gets me much more excited, because remember we were told about this little thing called the Durham probe. The Durham probe sounds like something you get at the doctor's office, but actually it was an investigation by a U.S. attorney in the state of Connecticut of deep state corruption. It was supposed to be soup to nuts, alpha to omega, top to bottom, deep dive, almost a buck brief, if you will, looking into everything that was done for Russia collusion from before Trump even was president during the campaign until 3 years into it, more or less, or whenever it was when they stopped the official investigation with the special counsel. And the best thing that we could hope for with that was that there would be a full reporting, a full accounting at least, before the election, which did not happen. The Durham probe did not give that to us. I've also been saying all along, just for those of you that are joining me now, you wouldn't know this, but I have a radio show, and I was talking about on radio for many months, if not years. The Durham probe is not going to frog march James Comey in handcuffs out of his home. There's no way that that's going to happen, that the bureaucracy will not go after these deep state targets the way people have been led to believe by others in the media. So I was right about that one. That all said, since we didn't get the Durham probe, and if we don't get it before a Joe Biden presidency, I can tell you it's going to be a 2-line. We didn't find anything. Sorry. That's it. Since we didn't get it, what really needs to happen here is the president should just go on a declassification spree. Mass declassification. That's Donald Trump Jr. tweeting it out. He says, we can't let the bad actors get away with it. Completely agree. This would be a fantastic way to go. Because I think right now you still have a whole lot of information that's being held onto by bad actors within government who want to cover for themselves. They want to avoid the embarrassment of people knowing what really went on here. And the American people have a right to know. So declassify, go after it. That's what I think should happen. I was telling the president in 2018, I met with him in the Oval Office, I said, sir, you got to declassify all this stuff. And then the intelligence community, which I used to work for, the CIA, they came in and they said, oh no, you can't do that, it'll be so bad for us. No. Russia collusion stuff at this point, if they want to make some cursory sources and methods check over for this, fine. But basically anything that went into a FISA we should know about. Anything that was used to spy on Carter Page, George Papadopoulos, what the thinking was inside the DOJ, what kinds of decision-making was going on in the final weeks of the Obama administration in January when they had that meeting and they talked about General Flynn. If we want to get to the bottom of this stuff, we need the documents. So declassify. I mean, Trump should just walk around like old King Midas, touches things and it's gold. He touches it and it declassifies it. He should just be on a declassifying spree. So this would be the fun stuff that Trump might do, or the good stuff that Trump might do. Some of it would be kind of fun. It's always fun to watch libs' faces melt. But then there's the stuff that I got to warn you about right now that Biden's already saying, assuming we get a Biden presidency, which certainly seems like a distinct possibility at this phase. Biden's saying that, for one, he's going to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord. This, you've heard, there's been more noise about this. Here he is. This is, was this Newsweek? I can't believe Newsweek still exists, but apparently it does. You've had more noise about the Paris Climate Accord. Maybe they'll start calling it the Biden Climate Accord. It's something that really has very little effect on your life, other than it gives elite lifestyle liberals something to feel like, oh, we're smart, we believe in science because we're a part of the Paris Climate. There's no mechanism for enforcement. Oh yeah, you really think all the signatories to this are going to say, you know what, it's going to dramatically increase the price of energy next year by 20%, but let's do it. You know, we got to cut those CO2 emissions. No, this is all just a big circle of people giving each other high fives and talking about how wonderful they are for saving the planet. You know, this is the Davos mentality brought to this climate change agreement nonsense. Maybe they could have, you know, the 17-year-old from Norway or whatever, wherever she's from, Greta, I forget, she's from one of the Sweden, Norway, whatever. Have her lecture us on how this is going to change the world if we only just do all the stuff that the Paris climate, it's crap, nonsense. This is the one that drives me insane, as you know, the Biden mask mandate. He says he's going to do this one too. Now, I've got a lot of questions. Forget about my concerns about whether there's really any science to back up this idea that if we mandate cloth mask wearing for people, we're going to dramatically stop the spread of the virus. Remember, at best, all you do is really delay the spread of the virus, but let's put that aside. And they used to know that, but now they've forgotten that because it's inconvenient for what the narrative is. So how are they going to enforce this? You're going to fine businesses? You're going to take people's money? What if people refuse to comply? You know, eventually you have to ask the question, is a Biden administration willing to just give some federal declaration under some emergency power? I mean, you know, whatever. They'll say that it's part of the Commerce Clause. They'll have some BS explanation for this. But are they willing to lock people up for a mask mandate? Has anyone even asked that question? Are they willing to tell, you know, federal law enforcement agencies that they're going to put you in prison if you don't obey the mask mandate? I just want to know what the outer limits are. If you're not enforcing it, you know, this takes us back to the time of Socrates, Plato. A law that is not enforced is not really a law, is it? So what are they going to be doing with this mask mandate? We've already been wearing masks for months and months. We've already been told to do this. It's nonsense. Let's jump to the critical race theory. Another one. So we're going to start having people in the federal government taught critical race theory, which is left-wing indoctrination, breaks us all down into categorizations by race. I would argue that critical race theory is itself racist teaching, but here we are. It's going to go back into the federal government and a Biden administration, so get ready for that. And then DACA reversal. DACA reversal. That's going to happen too. It's not exciting. Not exciting, because DACA was supposed to be a bargaining chip for something much larger on real immigration security in the Trump administration. That did not happen. DACA alone, okay, very sympathetic. You understand why those people should be able to stay, perhaps. What about DAPA for the parents? What about for the cousins? What about for friends? People live down the street that are also illegal. Where does it stop? Democrats will tell you it's just for people who came as children and no, that's a lie. It won't just be for those individuals. And if you want to get ready for a crisis, now's the time, because the border is going to turn into a mess the moment people realize that there's going to be an amnesty. It'll be the biggest incentive we've seen in our lifetime for people to cross illegally in the United States. They will flood the zone. But yeah, Trump at least might get to pardon some people. It'd be nice if he could end the war in Afghanistan too. While I'm here, could I ask for that? But no, he had to fire his Secretary of Defense because he wouldn't allow it, because after 20 years of warfare, they're going to tell us it's a premature withdrawal. Well, pharmaceutical giant Pfizer has announced that its COVID vaccine could be ready for prime time. We'll talk to Dr. David Samadi about the potential breakthrough right after this break. Welcome back. Some promising news came out in the global fight against the pandemic. Yesterday, pharmaceutical company Pfizer announced the results of its phase 3 clinical trial, and their vaccine proved 90% effective in fighting the infection. The company has signed on to Operation Warp Speed, the Trump administration's plan to fast-track delivery of the vaccine, and plans to provide up to 50 million doses by the end of the year. But was the announcement kept under wraps for political reasons? Here to discuss is the author of The Ultimate Manual, Dr. David Samadi. Doctor, thanks so much for joining us. You can talk to us about the vaccine. We appreciate it.
Good to be with you. Thank you for having me.
So just give us your top line thoughts. When this information came out from Pfizer, 90% effective, I hadn't heard anybody making predictions that it would be quite that high for any of these vaccines. So what does this tell us?
Well, number one, as you mentioned, I was a little disappointed that this news didn't break out before the election. I'm not aware of any major news in the last week or so that made it to come out now. But having said that, I think this is excellent news, and this is a news that we've been waiting for about a year. And the credit goes to the president and the vice president. And as you mentioned, the Warp Speed project is successful because they have put in tremendous funding and support for this particular vaccine and many other ones. You know, we're going to hear from GlaxoSmith, we're going to hear from Moderna very soon. But you're right, absolutely correct, that we were expecting to see something in the range of 50 to 60% effective. And at least in 40,000 people who participated in this clinical trial, they see about 90% effectiveness, which is excellent. We'll take any good news that we can get right now. And the reason why this is important is because a lot of people have talked about this doom and gloom, winter and another lockdown and mandatory mask. And we've seen a lot of these strategies have not worked in Europe and has failed. And it only has caused a collapse of the economy, psychological issues, suicide, anxiety, and so on, and family issues. So the fact that we have such a vaccine, plus a lot of our diagnostic tools, plus the fact that we have a lot of therapeutic treatment options for this virus, puts us in a very good position, and the world is following us. British people are buying vaccine, already ordering about millions of them. We are going to have about 50 million of them available by the end of the year, and the plan is to really distribute about 1.5 billion doses out there, which is tremendous.
So, Doctor, tell us how we should be thinking about the duration of protection component of this. One thing we don't know, and this has already come up, is how long will you be? Some vaccines we think of as you get it and you don't ever have to worry about it again, right? You get the vaccine and there's no problem for you, most likely, vast percentage of people. So what are we waiting for here? What do we have to see to know? Is this going to be like the flu vaccine where we have to get it every year, or could this be a one and done?
Well, that's a great question you're bringing up. Number one, the safety profile of this vaccine is going to come out in a week or two. And we think that based on everything that Pfizer has released with the partnership with BioNTech, is that it's fairly safe and there are not going to be major complications or issues from this. It's been effective in elderly, which is exactly the target of this virus, nursing home patients, elderly, people that have comorbidities. And they're talking about giving 2 doses, 3 weeks apart, almost like a booster. We don't know exactly how long this is going to protect us. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that there could be possible mutation in this particular virus. Certainly, if this would lead to what we call a T-cell immunity, as opposed to those antibodies, you will have a much longer protection. I'm pretty optimistic that this is at least going to protect you for the next year or two. But the research is ongoing, the clinical trials are ongoing, and we're going to get more and more news about this. The other companies, Eli Lilly is coming with another type of defense, almost like Regeneron, where they are giving antibodies for people that have been exposed to this virus and to boost your immune system. So fasten your seatbelt, because I think over the next couple of months, exactly the way the president predicted, we're going to see a lot of news, good news in November and December, and we're going to turn corner coming 2021. This is extremely important because we need to save our restaurants, our schools, education, families, and our economy.
Dr. Samadi, there's no way to separate all these conversations from politics, obviously. Governor CUOMO in New York, and we're talking about public health here, this is how he reacted initially, this was yesterday, to news about this vaccine. Play the clip.
Of vaccine distribution in the next 2 months. What do you make of this news?
Well, it's good news, bad news, George. The good news is the Pfizer tests look good and we'll have a vaccine shortly. The bad news is that it's about 2 months before Joe Biden takes over. The Trump administration is rolling out the vaccination plan, and I believe it's flawed. I believe it learns nothing from the past. They're basically going to have the private providers do it. You have 2 months, and we can't let this vaccination plan go forward the way the Trump administration is designing it. I've been talking to governors across the nation about that. How can we shape the Trump administration vaccine plan to fix it or stop it before it does damage?
What is he talking about, Doc?
Well, it's unfortunate because New York, we took a major beating when it came to this virus. We had the highest number of deaths. We had the highest number of these kind of cases in New York. And if anything, we need this vaccine more than any other state. And to delay this for an extra 2 months, where we see with the rise of these cases, it's not acceptable, and it's almost medical malpractice. We need to put politics outside of this medicine. This is not a Trump's vaccine. This is made by a prestigious company. A lot of independent people have looked at this. Doctors and scientists are all over this clinical trial. And, this is a lot of work and effort, and fundings have gone into this particular project. So not to give this vaccine to people out there doesn't make much of a sense. Now, the distribution of this, which is what the governor is talking about, is very tricky because we need the support of the federal government. We need a lot of fundings. This particular vaccine needs to be refrigerated minus 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And what's nice about this is that Pfizer already has kept these boxes that you can put almost 1,000 doses in the box and really get the U.S. Army to get them out there. So time is of an essence. We already have suffered from this Chinese virus. We don't need to delay this anymore. We got to protect the Americans. This has nothing to do with Republican or Democrat or what color you are. This is an American problem. It's a gift that was sent from a foreign country. We need to save lives. And there's no reason, now that we have a great vaccine, that everybody accepts it, to delay any distribution.
Doctor, we know that if Joe Biden does in fact get sworn in as the next president of the United States, he's been very clear one of his first actions will be a national mask mandate. Not a lot of specificity over how they'll enforce this, but I think we have some ideas. What do you think about a mandate for everybody to wear masks?
Well, unfortunately, our Twitter account gets shut down every 2 weeks. It's a mess. But I mentioned that, the word mandatory mask, it doesn't make much of a sense in America. This is a country that believes in kind of freedom. We need to be very smart about which states, what zones. We need to study this disease, and to, one size fit all and just make it into mandatory mask doesn't make much of a sense. By the way, this project already has been tried many times in Europe. A lot of European countries, they went out. You saw the mayor of Italy that was out there in the street telling and screaming at everybody to wear their mask, and it really didn't work. Now you see that Europe has their wave coming back and the numbers are up. So I think, all the agendas that the vice president has put in out there, President Trump has already done. The only thing that he is adding is basically going back to World Health Organization, and that has to be conditional. They have to fight for American lives, It's a World Health Organization. We are paying a big portion and our share of this, and they need to protect us. But mandatory masks doesn't make much of a sense. And the transition team that he's putting together, we need to look at all of those doctors very, very carefully. And I think this administration needs to get their credit where the credit is due. They have put in tremendous effort. They brought the public and the private team together. They cut through a lot of red tape and a lot of clinical trials that would take years, and they were able to really put them through a speedy process to save American lives. And, you know, we need to be grateful. And we're so fortunate that now we have the best diagnostic tools. We have medical treatments. Now we have the vaccine. And I really, truly see the light at the end of the tunnel for this.
Doctor, we really appreciate your expertise. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up, ridiculous Twitter takes, left-wing lunacy. Oh my, it's almost time for the latest edition of The Buckshot. Economic uncertainty has left us all wondering about the future. The stock market seems to blow back and forth with the winds of political change. So what do we do to protect ourselves and our income for the future? For over a decade now, simple and conservative real estate investing has been the retirement answer for thousands of done-for-you real estate clients and is now part of my answer to retirement. I'm not just a believer in what done-for-you real estate does, I'm also a client. I recently closed on my first ever investment property with my friends at Done4You Real Estate. Their system flat out works. Done4You Real Estate found me an amazing property, got me the financing, got it all fixed up, and are now renting it out and managing it for me. They're an award-winning, groundbreaking company with 13 years of experience that allows everyday hardworking Americans to finally own investment real estate without all the risk and difficulty of doing it on your own. Visit done4youbuck.com to learn more and to find out if you qualify to take advantage of what may be a once-in-a-generation opportunity to finally own your own investment real estate. A former Obama propagandist talks about possible Democrat criminality and the Logan Act. A terrible take on Thanksgiving side dishes. We got to dive into that one, friends. And Joy Reid with a not smart comment. Not a surprise. It's time to blast a few clay pigeons in today's Buckshot. Ben Rhodes. This guy was a failed fiction writer who somehow ended up as really the national security strategist in the Obama administration, at least a strategist when it came to convincing, pretty much by his own admission, ignorant 25-year-olds who work for Politico and the Daily Beast what the foreign policy line of the Obama administration was going to be, and therefore they should parrot it and go along with it and agree with everything that was said. So that's who Ben Rhodes was. But you will recall also there was a little problem. I'm going to bring two thoughts together here. There was a problem with General Flynn because of something called the Logan Act. What did General Flynn do back in 2016, 2017? They said that he spoke to his Russian counterpart when he was the incoming National Security Advisor, Sergei Kislyak. That just means that he was the transition official speaking to a foreigner. Well, what is Ben Rhodes, Obama's foreign policy guru, what is he saying that's interesting? Play the clip.
The center of political gravity in this country and the world is shifting to Joe Biden. Foreign leaders are already having phone calls with Joe Biden talking about the agenda they're going to pursue January 20th. If that reality hasn't sunk in yet for some people in the White House, it will sink in when they have to leave on January 20th. And they're going to be in for a rude awakening here.
Wait, why are they, they're not even the president-elect yet. Why are they speaking to foreigners? Foreign officials, I mean. Sorry, they can speak to foreigners. Why are they speaking to foreign officials? Is the Logan Act a thing only for Republicans? Yes, it is, apparently. Something that Obama administration officials will use to try to jam up General Flynn. It's exactly what they did. And now, guess what? You're not going to have any leaks to the Washington Post of top secret information, I can assure you. You're not going to have any leaks of phone conversations between senior officials to try to mess up incoming Biden administration official folks. And that's just, we all know that's the way that it is. So it's frustrating. The hypocrisy, friends, I choke on it, but here we are. Joy Reid. Remember Joy Reid? She's a primetime host now at MSNBC, has her own show. I'm sure she's paid very, very well for that. She had a little bit of problems, a little bit of trouble about a year and a half ago or so when it came out that she had written some homophobic stuff 10 years ago on her blog. She was the one who famously claimed, I was hacked and the FBI is investigating. And yes, it is feasible that she was hacked if the hackers had developed a time machine, gone back and written in her voice on her blog at that time. Nonetheless, she got promoted because that's how they roll over at MSNBC. But she also is out there to inform the folks, to inform the people of this country. And this is what she tweeted out today. Here's the thing. The reason there's a thing called 538 is because 538 was the margin in Florida when the Republican SCOTUS reversed the 2000 election during a recount, making W the president. That's the kind of margin where races can flip. That's not what's up now. No. She should check how many members of Congress there are. Yeah, friends, that's what you get. That's a host at MSNBC. That's somebody that's a trusted news voice, a journo. You're supposed to believe everything she says. And then you got this one. And this in some ways, other than mask mandates, which make me want to throw things at the wall, including the mask that I'm told to wear all the time, there's this fight we have over Thanksgiving sides. I don't think this would really be much of a fight. Here's a map that was shared out there. You can kind of see here. All right, look, it's tough for you. Some of you at home will be able to see. There's some very standard stuff here. You go in the southeastern states, you get, Georgia and the Carolinas. You have mac and cheese, which is a great side. You can't hate on mac and cheese. Delicious. I love it. You get up in the Northeast, where Thanksgiving is properly celebrated, and the favorite Thanksgiving side is stuffing because we are a civilized folk. And you get out west to California, even Nevada, they know that it's mashed potatoes. But Texas, I love you. What is going on with green bean casserole? How the heck, and hat tip Sonny Bunch for sharing this one on his Twitter account, how the heck does anyone think green bean casserole is the best Thanksgiving side? This is just silliness, folks. I think up in Maine also they had green salad, which makes me think that somebody hacked into the results. There's no person really thinks that green salad is the best side, rather, you can have during Thanksgiving. People also put gravy. I want to throw a flag on that one. Gravy is a condiment. Gravy is not a side unto itself, no matter how thick, luxurious, and delicious as it can be. So just want to point that one out. I would have demanded a recount. I would not have accepted the results of this Thanksgiving sides map if it were up to me. But that's it for Hold the Line with Buck Sexton, also me. Up next, the No Spin News with the one and only Bill O'Reilly. Shields high.